Hey there, and welcome to Conversations, where today we have Dr. Jeff Doolittle, who has helped business owners and executives of small businesses to global Fortune 50 companies, and his work is also taught in university classrooms. He is the founder of Organizational Talent Consulting, a premier executive coaching and business consulting firm for leaders and organizations. Jeff is the author of Life-Changing Leadership Habits, an everyday guide for creating good leadership habits, breaking bad ones, and achieving success and significance. You can read Jeff's current articles on his blog, Organizational Espresso. And for all you strengths enthusiasts, Dr. Doolittle leads with relator, achiever, communication, learner, and self-assurance. Jeff, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Doing good. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to have you here. We've had a couple different conversations before now, so it's good to finally get you in the seat and in the house. So I appreciate
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, new book.
That's right. The book is in the process, and it's that's a journey in of itself. In fact, I heard it called it's like driving at night in a rainstorm. You can only see as far as your headlights can shine, and you kind of just keep driving. You how to get there, but there's times of you're not quite sure how you're going to get there or where you're going to end up. But yeah, it's been a great journey. I've really enjoyed it.
Isn't it
I guess
easier?
That's the learner.
It is the learner in you, for sure. I know, because you hear about these people who, they have somebody else write their book.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
right.
ghostwriters and whatnot. It's a totally different journey when you are the one who is, you're writing the book and you're researching how to get it published and all these different things. So kudos to you for taking that journey, and I can't wait to have it in my hand so I can read through it.
I'll be excited to send you a copy for sure.
Well, today we are going to talk about some of those leadership habits. And so you note that there are 10 that you talk about. So what are those 10 worst leadership habits?
Yeah, so I start kind of with the whole Lencioni kind of approach to things of, hey, let's talk about the dysfunctions before we get to what we should do. And with that, I think some of the 10 worst habits that I've seen, and I in my office, if you could come in here, up on the wall, I have a mind map that I started with all the types of habits over the past 25 years that I've seen in leaders and experienced working within talent management and leadership development. Then I did research, obviously going through my doctoral program in strategic leadership and kind of what I see from that angle. And I kind of mapped the two together, and I have over 70 different bad habits that I've identified within leaders and organizations, and in interviews that I've done in putting the book together. So this map up here, I then took it and really went through and did and affinitized it down to, hey, what are the 10 worst leadership habits and how they kind of connect and play together. So that's what led to then the 10 life-changing habits that the book is based on. But what I think are the 10 worst, and I'll start with one that's really close and I think is important to identify, is the absence of love for followers. And I think it's one of those that, and I'll talk more later about that, hopefully in this conversation we can get into it, but I think that is one of those things that impacts every aspect of leadership. And you may have hear that and even go, I'm not sure I agree that's a bad habit. But I want to talk more about that later, and I get into that in the book. The second one I pull out is, failure to consider what might be. We get into the whole, we're always focused on what needs to be done and the tactics and strategy goals that we're talking about, but taking the time to really just focus on what might be, what's the possibilities. Do we connect with our followers and their dreams, and do we talk about their aspirations and how that aligns and shapes our business and our direction? So I really think this failure to consider what might be is another one. Another one that I want to highlight: lack of data-driven decision making. So, running your business based on on experience and stories, and we've seen that in today's world with such a fast-moving workplace, complex, digital data is the it's like gold. It's and having that to base your decisions on is critical. So the failure to, or the lack of that data driven decision making and adjusting to that is another watch out warning. Another one here is unintentional leadership. Just that kind of like approaching each day as what's set in front of me. And it's like, you get up and you just go to work and you're just that leader. That's the role. And you're not really, but you're not stopping to think about the direction and leading with intention and leading from a point of what you want and what you're looking for, what others need and want, and just giving that purpose. So I talk about that a little bit. The fifth one is the unbalanced living. And it's living a life where we're set up for, you're on that treadmill running at a speed of 8 as a leader, and you're just trying to hang on. And you think, man, if I just push a little bit harder, I can get more done in the day. And you move ahead and but you get out of balance, so easily. One aspect of life is not taken care of, whether that's mental, physical, emotional, or spiritual. We start to shortcut one side of our life and we think, well, balance isn't even possible, right? There's a whole topic on that. And I talk about this in the book too. But unbalanced living was the fifth. The sixth is micro or macro management. Those micro, leaders that get into every detail possible. Maybe they're bent that way, and so they love the details and they just get absorbed into it. But they micromanage their followers. Or the leader that is the exact opposite and is like, hey, I just like to have people hire them and just let them go, right? And you just say, here you go. And the total hands off. And that's not leadership either. So we talk a little bit about that. The seventh one, mismanaging difficult conversations. Difficult leadership is a relationship, right? And no relationship stays constant, and difficult conversations are a part of life. And as a leader, mismanaging those difficult conversations can really play out in a lot of different ways and impact your effectiveness and your organization's can really cap your organization's ability to innovate and drive growth. The eighth one, absence of trust. So just a leader that is not trusting of others or not focused on building trust within the organization. It's one of that's trust is really at a crisis in a lot of organizations today. And Edelman has some great research out there and great data. I like data, so I like learning. And but there's a lot of research that trust is at an all-time crisis low in organizations. And so a leader that leads with an absence of trust is the eighth. The ninth, the fear of failure. So a fear of that, thinking that failure is such a bad thing, it's avoided at all costs, yet and we wonder why organizations are not innovating, right? So innovation is just increasingly important for organizations and for leaders. And so leaders that have this innate fear of failure, which, there's healthy and unhealthy fear of failure. And I get into that and talk about it. But that I put at the ninth. And then the 10th is a lack of strategic thinking, is just the idea that hope is the only strategy. And I do talk about hope is really important in today's world. It is. And I think we need a strategy for hope, but we need a strategy. Having a lack of strategy is not is not a success. So, and I get it. And leaders today are kind of beat down from the constant change, crisis of the moment. What's the next crisis coming, right? Stagflation, is that going to be it? There's all kinds of discussion out there. And so leaders just say, I can't, how can you plan for the next crisis? You can't plan for that. You can't do anything about that. And so we give up on strategy and we just walk away from it. And people suffer as a result of it, and organizations. So we talk a little bit about the impact of that. And that rounds out the 10 that I think are the 10 worst based on my study and the work.
Well, I wrote them all down.
Well, they're in the book too, but they're in the book from a different
until
angle.
I get the book. Yeah, those are amazing. And I love how, you have that absence of love first. And that's amazing. I mean, those 10 and the absence of trust, I'll tell you on the Bellum survey, the We're Still Curious survey, trust is a big deal. It's like teams know they need it, but it's not there.
No, and I think leaders feel helpless to really do anything about it. Some leaders, not all, but I talk with some of the executives that have said, well, it's there be an acquisition, a corporate has done this or corporate's doing that, and so no one trusts anybody anymore. The recent COVID, all the layoffs, that really took a shot on a lot of trust. We told people, oh, your family, and then when times got tough, we said goodbye. And in a family, they don't do that. Yeah. So all of a sudden now trust is like,
it goes back to that absence of love for followers, right? It all points to that.
It does. And hey, and that's the biblical aspect too, right? We know that's the greatest commandment and for a reason, right? Like, maybe God knew what he was doing, right? Maybe
and
Jesus
it's very
knew.
Short and simple.
It is.
We make it so difficult.
Yeah. So hard to live out, but easy to say. Well, and that's where it requires God, right? And we know that it's in and of ourselves, it's not possible, but with God, all things are possible. And that's what makes it possible.
There's something on here that I wanted that intentional leadership. And that is so important because I don't know if leaders really know how to be intentional. It's not taught. It's really a mindset shift, isn't it?
It is. And it is, oh my goodness. I wish 25 years ago, someone would have told me about this topic of intentionality and purpose and how it connects together. And when I work with leaders now, I start around purpose. And I ask tough questions about what does significance look like for you? What is living a life of significance? We talk about what's the one thing, the question you get on your deathbed is, what did you live the life that you wanted? Did you achieve the things in life that you wanted? And too often we say, we ran out of time. And is it that we ran out of time or we didn't start with a purpose? We didn't clarify our purpose. We all have just so many days, right? And so living a life of intentionality, it impacts our life at work. It impacts what we accomplish. It impacts our companies and our businesses, and it impacts us personally and what we want out of life. And I wish I would have 25 years ago, someone would have sat down and made me think about, why do you even want to be a leader? Besides the fact it's promotion, besides the fact it was money, it was just accepted as a career path, as this is what I needed to do. And I just needed to move into leadership. And well, how did it align with my purpose? And what do I want? What do I see as God's placing within me to achieve and to accomplish? And how does this all work together? And so I can go on that. And I do in the book talk about some transformational tools around it, but it's critical, right? And it's if you want to live a life of significance and you want to achieve success, you have to you have to understand with a clear picture what that looks like, or you're never going to achieve it. And it looks different for all of us, especially with all this competing, noise around what success should be, or what significance should be, and what do you really feel it should be? And I find often when I ask that question to leaders, it's just like a deer in headlights. It's like, I haven't really stopped to think about that. And yet, how do we live that life that we want if we don't know what it looks like? I have a saying, any road will get you where you want to go if you don't know where it is that you're going.
Yeah.
And right. And so intentionality.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So what is the greatest leadership habit?
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking, because that's, well, you kind of hit on it. You said right off the bat, I like how you started with it. Yeah. Hey, no surprise. I put it right up front. It's the first life-changing habit that I talk about is loving your followers, selfless love for followers. And uh, in my experience and in my studies of doctoral strategic leadership, I always like to ask that question. I like to simplify things. What's one thing?
Mhm.
What's one thing? I've been that kind of person that's I like to keep it very simple. And that's why there's 10, but I focused on one. What's one thing? The one thing that in all of my research, I never found an article that would contradict or challenge or say in any way selfless love is a negative. I have not come across any, and I'm open to it if someone has any. I have not come across any negative impacts of selfless love for others. It's the one thing that impacts everything within your leadership. And so while selflessly love is rarely discussed in business, it influences everything. And I, when I first moved into a leadership position, that it was in an organization where they talked about loving followers. I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, I can't love my followers. I'm a dad. I have married for over 30 years, and I feel challenged to love my wife, and I feel challenged to love my children. And I think, man, how could I love, at that time I was a director role and having, like 30 in my downline, thinking, you want me to love them? How is it even possible? I don't know if I have enough in me to do that. How can you do this? And so it sent me down an exploration around love and selfless love. And again, in my studies and in the book, I get into a lot of the research around that supports this idea of selfless love. And when we think about love, I think oftentimes we have multiple meanings to that word. And
Mhm.
that also leads to why I was reacting the way I was, is because my definition of love was different than what was meant by selfless love. But willing the good of others at a sacrifice of yourself is this idea of selfless love. And it has the ability to influence and change everything because it's an inner character of who you are. It's your virtue of who you are. In the book, I talk about virtues and vices, and
Yeah.
a vice around this can be like transactional leadership. This
Mhm.
idea that it's I can make someone do something, or I set a goal and they do it. And this idea, how that's just so opposite of this idea of selfless love, about really looking at trying to bring out their best and help them do good and accomplish the work that's set before them at putting them at the center rather than that whole inverted pyramid idea of where instead of you as the leader at the top, you flip it. And once I understood this idea of selfless love, I said, okay, now that sounded more reasonable. I could do this, I could do that. And in the book I talk about just some tools and tips around how you can then take that and actually start to apply selfless love in some very specific ways.
As you're talking, it prompted me to think about, we're called, if you're a Christian and Christian leader, we're called, to love people.
Mm-hmm.
And so why do we have that stop at the workplace?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, of all people, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. And so what's the greatest commandment?
Right.
If we take and pull it
Yeah.
at the scriptures, and when Jesus was asked that, is love God and to love others.
Mhm.
And the word love that was used there is this idea of agape, agapeo. And there's been some research around that and what makes up that. And yeah, it's transformation. So yeah, it not only impacts us personally in our lives, it impacts us from a career perspective as well, and it unlocks amazing potential within an organization. Uh, Organizational citizenship behavior. So go technical on us for just a second
Yeah.
here, the doctor
Okay.
side. OCB, organizational citizenship behavior, is this idea. It's the holy grail of performance. It's when people will give you discretionary effort. They will do something for you that you've not ask them to do that's a worthy outcome. So, for example, two people walking in to work for the day, and they work in, say, in a retail environment. And as they're going in, shopping carts are spread all out. One of the employees that's walking, and by the way, neither of them have the job of putting away shopping carts. Let's just imagine they're maybe they're retail clerks. So they're going to get in and run the cash register. But as they're walking in, one of them stops and takes the carts and pushes them and puts them in the bin where they're supposed to be, or walks them inside. The other one just keeps on walking. What's the difference? Why did one person do this and the other didn't? Neither of them had it as an expectation. But that's the idea of discretionary effort. It's so one of them took action and did something beyond what was expected of their role that was a worthy outcome to the organization. And that is organizational citizenship behavior. And what they found out is that selfless love unlocks organizational citizenship behavior in employees. It brings an environment where people will do and give you discretionary effort. And as a leader in today's world, where you're running 100 miles an hour and you're getting pulled in a million different directions, you need employees that can have that kind of mindset, that can take that step forward and automatically do what's right in the moment and needed to help the organization beyond whatever you could put in a job description and outline. You just can't put everything in a job description. You can't do it. And you
That's
need
not
to
my job.
this.
That's
Right.
one of the things that
Yeah.
used to just blow my mind. Anytime I hear, well, it's not in my job description.
Right. Yeah. And that's like the antithesis of organizational citizenship behavior. Is the exact opposite, right? It's like, oh no, I'm not doing that. So what we know is transactional leadership will get you more of "it's not my job." Selfless love will get you more of it's doing, I want to do what is best to help the organization beyond what's even asked or expected or compensated of me. And it's that discretionary effort.
And
So that's just one of the benefits. And I mean, there are
to work with that mentality, and we're
oh,
intentional about it. Like, I am going to show up to work today, and I am going to give you my best.
Yes. Yeah. Right. And just think, so we think math, 1 + 1 is 2, right? And this is that idea of 1 + 1 could be 5. It could be 10. It's what is possible within your organization. If you can tap into this idea of discretionary effort, if you can unlock that, not only will you achieve what you have set as expected, you will achieve things that you never thought were possible because you will have tapped into this discretionary effort. Just from just that perspective alone is one of the benefits of selfless love. And there are several, and things that organizations are looking for from and need today. This idea of building that from a leadership perspective, habits around this unlock the potential of what could be. That's why I call it the greatest. I know why I put it up front is it exceeds what's expected of leaders and unlocks this, what I call the unexpected, the potential of an unknown.
Yeah. And so we have these bad habits, and we have, there's negative consequences, right? For bad habits, right?
Yes, there
should be, if they're not.
There are.
So why are leaders doing them? What is it?
Okay.
What's the motivation?
Yes. So after an exhaustive study of looking at the evidence, the peer-reviewed articles, that you do within your doctoral studies, basically what they found out is that leaders are bad people. I'm just kidding. So no, that's not it at all. I'm just kidding. Yeah. It's actually impossible to answer this question definitively, because for each person they're different, and the context in which they're leading in is different. People differ in how they respond in different situations, and everyday habits that they adopt or don't adopt vary because of who they are, where they are, how the context that they're leading within. So, what I found is that the ability to surprise you for the better or worse, we start to look for answers, right? When somebody does something, you're like, why did they do this? A good person. And I believe people will always surprise you for the better and the worse, but there's the potential of
That's
that. And I
true.
think when we see that, we start to ask this question more about why does it happen? But and the more you dig, you find out that you want a definitive reason, but there isn't, and there's more to this, and it varies because we're complex.
We are complex, and depending on, the circumstance that a leader's in, you never know. Like when I
Mhm.
think about my own leadership, especially when I was a younger leader and some of the decisions that I made that, I look back and it's like, oh my gosh, how could I have ever made those?
Mhm.
But it is a learning process. It's a journey.
Mhm. And the good news is those all those bad habits that we've seen or maybe done ourselves, they're not our destiny. They don't have to be our destiny. And truly striving for better leadership habits is a competitive advantage that's available to each and every leader.
Yeah. So let's hear some advice, doctor.
So, around, let's say you want to change a bad habit. Is that where you're headed with this? Your
Yes,
question?
let's
Okay.
let's do that.
So, I think one of the there even in this area of wanting to create good habits, it's good to go in eyes wide open. Likely we all have tried to create a healthy habit in
Mhm.
our life at some point, right? And I think New Year's resolutions, and we've set this we've all done it at some point. We said, hey, I want to do this, and we
That's
set out
right.
with all the best intentions.
For 24 hours.
Yes. And then all of a sudden we forgot that we even made that commitment. But the first thing I'll call out is that um, I think leaders feel, I don't have the time. I don't have the time to create
Mm-hmm.
or change a habit. I don't have the time for this. And in most cases, breaking bad habits is not going to happen overnight. If you're going to create a life-changing habit, it's going to take time, it's going to take patience, and it's going to take repetition. There's a lot of research. People will throw out there how many times you have to do a good habit for it to become a habit. And the reality is there's a common myth is that it's 21 times. Well, there's not a, I wish it was that easy. And for some people it might be. I'm not going to say it's not. It's just the research says that that's not an absolute. It's a myth. It takes a lot of practice and it takes time. And so it takes a lot of reinforcement. Going in eyes wide open that it is going to take some time is essential to remember as you're building a good habit. So uh, you do want to realize it's going to you're going to have to work through this. The other one I'd say is people say, well, I've got real work I need to get done, and they're going, hey, there's other things on my plate that I've got to get to. So the twist on this either or decision is that you get caught up in thinking, well, I only have so many hours in the day, and I could either get this work done that a customer's asking for, or I could work on my own development. So the argument takes place, and we get in our mind, and under pressure, we tend to make these very nearsighted decisions that by doing the urgent and important work right now, that we're getting ahead. But what we get trapped in that urgent and important kind of work, and to get to where we need to be is really getting to what's important but not urgent, and really getting ahead of that by we've heard the argument of you taking the time to sharpen the saw before you cut the
Mm-hmm.
wood. As a leader, it's important to remember creating new healthy habits will help you run faster in the long run. So you may have to run slower initially, but it'll help you down the road.
Mm.
So the I would say another one I'd throw out is that people may say, well, these bad habits that you've called out here, weren't they good habits in the past? Wasn't this a good thing that it used to be? And soon these things are going to become bad habits as well. And a topic like leadership can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So what I would say is that you definitely want to work from a uh, proven practices, proven principles. You don't want to unfortunately, the unregulated leadership development space is
Yeah.
full of a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people selling an idea. because it's worked here or worked there. And what I found is that in this book, really going and looking at the research and what it has to say about what really is the proven practices, are the proven practices around something before you get into it. So in this book, I based them all around, I've done that hard work, done the research for leaders so that they
Thank
can
you.
rely on these proven principles that are timeless. These aren't just fly of the night, what's going to be today, and then tomorrow it's going to be different. They're timeless. And when stakes are high, it's really important to make sure that it's grounded in something meaningful rather than just maybe a one-off, one case mentality.
So would you say what you provide in the book is practical application?
I do, yeah, and I would say transformational. It's practical. I put myself in that pracademic. I found that word through my doctoral work. I hadn't ever heard that, but a very practical,
like that.
Yeah, as academic as well. Definitely grounded. And I am always, my life, I've always been after what's the one thing you need to do. So it's very simple, to the point. I understand leaders are running fast and they don't have a lot of time. So try to take that into account. Even within the book, I've given some strategies around how to use your time wisely within the book, so that you don't feel like you have to sit down and just read it front page to back page, but how you can really mine it and pull out what you need. And with some transformational tools that'll help you get started building that habit.
Well, it sounds fantastic. I'm excited. Like I said, I can't wait to get it. Tell us the name of your book again.
Yeah. Life Changing Leadership Habits, 10 Proven Principles that will help you elevate your people, purpose, and profit.
I love that. I do love that. And so when this book is available, where will people be able to get it?
Yeah, it's I'm gonna be putting it out into obviously Amazon and to the digital space, and they'll be available in a soft cover as well as a ebook Kindle version and a hardcover for those that like the old-fashioned hardcover books. You'll have those options. Yeah, I do too. So I've made there'll be 3 versions of it available, and yeah, you'll be able to get it through Amazon and Barnes and Noble, all the digital spaces, Walmart, those types of places.
That's terrific. And you're going to hear more from Dr. Jeff Doolittle at the Confident Leader Symposium that's coming up in January. Can't wait for that. But if people would like to get a hold of you, where can they find you?
Sure. So organizational talent, all make it all one word.com is my website. And out there, I have you can set up a 20-minute meeting with me using a get in touch button on the website. Again, thank you for shouting out the blog that I put out weekly. Organizational Espresso is the blog. But if you want to get into the mailing list for that, you can do that. And I just try to provide very short 5-minute type of reads that on a given topic that you can apply immediately and see some benefit within your life and leadership tactics. So those 2, and of course, my phone number and email are there as well if you just want to reach out that way. But I enjoy talking to those that I work with. I'm very interested in building relationships and networking as well.
I can tell. And I know that firsthand. Well, it has been a joy to have you on today, Jeff. I appreciate you. I appreciate your wisdom and all the good nuggets that I can't wait to read in your book and then apply, because nobody's perfect. No leader's perfect. And I think that this will probably be something for everyone.
Right. The reality is there is no perfect leader and there's no perfect organization, because we're all flawed in some way ourselves. And yeah, that's important to keep in mind.
Yeah, it sure is. Sure is. All right. Well, thank you again. And we will see you soon. You keep doing great things. You're doing wonderful work. And I love the research. And like I said, I can't wait to get a hold of your book.
Thank you. Thanks so much for this opportunity and to be a part and get out to your network as well.
Absolutely. Thanks. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.